When do you know what all you're getting?
We didn't. And we knew that we were getting the library, but the due diligence hadn't taken place. We hadn't had discovery. We didn't really know what was there.
Let's run through it just, like a third grader. They rent office
Well,
space.
hang on. I'm sorry. I'm going to answer your question a little bit differently. We knew that we were not going to assume any of their debt, and we knew that we were not going to assume any talent contracts. That whatever we did with talent, we would redo under the WWF name. We would not, because we had no idea what they were.
So instead of buying the company, what you really bought were physical assets.
Correct.
The logo.
Right.
And the library.
Right. We brought a bunch of different
but when you
IPs
when you buy
like
the company, though, you inherit the debt. And so to just, kind of do a fire sale here.
Correct.
So let's run through this. Turner owns all the real estate. So WCW doesn't own any land or buildings. But they did own, silly shit like rings.
No, it's not silly for a wrestling company to own wrestling rings.
No, but when you're talking about, millions of dollars.
Yeah, they own wrestling rings. I mean, we got the rings. We got
belts
some old,
and, entrance sets. And
I don't think we really even took much of their sets. We did take their trainer boxes that they had, like the big crates that you see on concerts and things. They roll around backstage. They had some nice trainer setups.
Well, where do the rings go?
To the warehouse, and some of them went to Talent. I believe Rock got one in Florida. I think Taker got one in Texas. I think Booker T ended up with one.
I'm fascinated.
But Booker T ended up with his, I think, from Mark to Booker.
From The Undertaker?
Yes.
Okay. I'm fascinated by a WWF talent like The Undertaker getting a WCW ring. I don't know why. I mean, I get this is a dumb Mark question, but outside of like taking bumps or something, what can he really do with that? The ropes are different. It's a different size. As a wrestling fan, I get this is a dumbass question. I've always been told WCW rings were smaller, WWF rings were bigger, and that the ropes were totally different. They're cable. So it's not like you could do flippy shit off of it and then translate to the exact way it would be in a WWF ring. And it seems like your timing would be off if the ring was bigger.
Yeah, that's true. And all of that is true. But it was a place to take bumps. And if you're going to be recuperating from an injury, you could go in and wrestle around, take bumps, things like that. Not ideal. Like Undertaker, for example, ended up with the WWE ring. So, like I said, I think Booker ended up getting some of those rings eventually. But it was there. We figured we might be able to use them. And we did use some of them for spot shows where we needed smaller rings, things of that nature.
Wow.
Use them for developmental, some of the places that had smaller venues.
But I just mean in terms of a lot of, like if you bought a construction company, you're getting a bunch of machinery, you're getting heavy equipment, you're getting
We got
stuff.
rings.
You got rings.
We got rings.
Anything else you can remember you guys buying and getting possession of that you remember thinking, this is kind of cool or this is kind of silly?
No, not that I can really remember.
Do you, you've always been a title belt guy, like our great sponsor, Leather by Dan. Do you remember any of the belts you guys got and remember thinking, this is kind of cool that we have this?
No.
Okay.
Honestly, no, they were.
That's the only thing I remember being on TV that was really WCW.
Aside from the big gold belt, there weren't really any cool belts.
Yeah.
And
it's neat to see Shawn Michaels with that belt and The Rock with that belt. I mean, that's kind of fun.
Without a doubt, that part's cool, but it was the rest of them were just belts. They're just props.
Yeah. So Bischoff announces on this next to last Nitro that the final Nitro will be what he calls Night of Champions, and he invites all former champions to come to the final WCW broadcast on Turner, and the penny pinching at this point is out of control, and Brad Siegel insists on personally approving travel and talent for the final show, and they even lock down the office to make sure nothing is stolen, and there are reports of security checking briefcases and even frisking office staff as they left. Have you ever heard of some silly shit like this?
No, but I can understand it.
What would they be stealing, though?
Who knows?
Letterhead?
Yeah,
Pens?
I don't know. Who knows?
Well, rumors are some folks still managed to get a workaround and wised up and just mailed stuff to themselves.
That's classic.
Because you can't leave the building with it, but, we'll pay for the postage to send it to your house. This is hilarious to me. Before the show, AOL starts offering, the final show rather, AOL starts offering guys who are on guaranteed contracts, a buyout. And let's kind of run through the money here, which obviously Bruce, wasn't privy to since it was an AOL deal. But allegedly, guys who were earning less than $500,000 a year would be offered 70 cents on the dollar as a lump sum. And guys who were earning between $500,000 and $1.5 million would be offered 40 cents on the dollar. And guys who made more than $1.5 million would only get 30 cents on the dollar. And the Torch notes that that's just where the negotiations opened. But the idea here is if you accept, you're free to go work for the WWF. So you kind of get paid twice. You get one lump sum right now. And if it goes according to plan, you'd make way more going to work for the WWF, which I guess is probably a good strategy for AOL, but it doesn't really work out. Nash says that he's just going to ride it out and then kind of feel out the WWF in 11 months when his contract is up. There's supposedly no interest at the time from the WWF side in Luger or the Steiners. Can you confirm or deny that?
Well, there was no interest in assuming any of those contracts.
But I mean, in terms of outside of that contract, like if they got a buyout and they were available, Luger never came.
It never got to that point because they weren't available and
they weren't taking buyouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so a lot of those guys don't. And Goldberg specifically, go ahead.
And frankly, we looked at it as we understood. The guys were making a sick amount of money, and
they got to sit at home and do nothing and check the mail and get a big check.
And there was no problem with that.
Yeah, it's hard to argue. Goldberg had 2.5 years left on his deal. The year that WCW goes out, he was making $1.2 million. The next year, he was scheduled to make $1.7, and the third year of his contract, it was $2.2. So when he gets the call from AOL to make this offer, he very politely says, fuck off.
How do you politely say fuck off?
Well, I'm being facetious.
Well, you know.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.